All right, welcome back. Time for speaking. So, speaking, I think, is a very quintessential language skill. We use it all the time. And so, because we speak all the time, we might not notice how difficult it is to speak English. For example, we might know, okay, yeah, there's 26 letters in the English language. Yes, got that. But depending on what dialect you speak, there are 40 different sounds used in English. And then using those 26 letters, we have developed over 200 ways to represent those 40 different sounds. So speaking English is very, 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 very complicated. In fact, linguists tried to come up with their own international phonetic alphabet where each letter is assigned one sound, but we don't use that in every day. We use those 26 letters, not just all of those symbols. So it's pretty difficult. One way that you can make this a lot easier, though, for your students is to give them practical advice. So, one way to do that is by talking about the articulators of speech. And these are just how do we use our mouths to make the sounds of English. The first one is the palate, or the roof of the mouth. There's the hard and soft palate. Hard's at the front, soft palate's towards the back. Then we have the alveolar ridge. If you feel the little bump behind your front teeth, uh, that is the alveolar ridge, and we use that to make sounds. And of course, we use our lips, our teeth, the tongue, and then we also use the voice box, or they're also called the vocal cords. So if you put your hand on your throat and you feel some vibration, that is your voice box or your vocal cords. And so if you say "b," you can feel it vibrating. And then if you say "p," you can feel it not vibrating. Still, this can be fairly complicated. You don't necessarily know what sounds your language learners are going to struggle with. So this website is an amazing resource, the McGraw-Hill Language Lab. It goes over the difficult sounds of the English language, and it goes through what speech articulators to use and where to place them in the mouth. It's a great resource. Check it out. So, general principles for speaking. Again, spelling does not always equal pronunciation. A lot of the times it does not. There are multiple sounds per letter and multiple letters per sound. You want to help the student notice how to use the articulators of speech, teeth, tongue, and hard and soft palates, to name some. And you want to focus on when will this impede the student's ability to be understood. So you want to focus on those errors that interfere with their communicative goal. And so this is called comprehensibility. Can people comprehend what they're saying? And maybe that is because they're saying 50 as 50, and you're like, is that 15 or 50? Maybe it's the fact that they only talk at one pace and they only talk at one sound, and that doesn't really help people understand what they're talking about, versus if they added some intonation or some pauses that might help people understand them, even if their sounds aren't exactly textbook perfect. So again, just focus on those errors or those different strategies that help them be understood, that help their comprehensibility. All right, time to apply it. Amina, talking to other moms at a playgroup. Valentina, ordering food at a restaurant for her and the children. And Lucy, answering questions in a lecture. So follow along on your session 2 guide, and I will meet you back here for the last but not least skill.
Okay, so we're going to do just the same thing that we did last time with reading menus, but with the speaking goal, which is that Amina wants to be able to talk with other moms at a playgroup. And Julia was talking a lot about pronunciation. Um, that's a huge topic. I don't want you to think about that too much right now. I want you to focus more on the lesson template and thinking about if she wants to be able to participate in play groups with moms and make friends and develop relationships, how can we support that goal? Forget about pronunciation for now. Just think about, I don't want to give it away, but think about where can you find model texts for that? What would you help her notice? And then how can you help her practice and prepare to participate in real life? Okay, great. So this one I think is a little more challenging than the menu example. So this is a speaking goal. So it's a little harder to find model texts, but you can do it. So let's brainstorm. How would you find models of how moms speak to each other in playgroups? To give her something to analyze and learn from. Where can you find models of moms talking to each other? Any thoughts?
Preschool, when the parents come to pick up their kids to go home. More casual than dropping them off in the morning. But
so she could go, you could encourage her to go and just listen to real moms interacting and maybe take notes in her language log and see what she notices there. That's a great idea. I love that idea. But it's very fleeting, you know? So in addition to that, we want to give her something a little more stable, I think, to slow it down. See what I'm saying?
You could ask the daycare center, whatever age it is, whether there's any parent and their children who'd be willing to spend time with you and your student.
That's a great idea. And that's a way, yeah. I think many people would love that as an opportunity to meet somebody from a different culture and share about their culture. Okay, other ideas about how you could find model texts?
Go to a playground.
But yeah, anywhere where moms congregate, you can listen. James?
No, I forgot what I was going to ask. Models or texts of moms talking to each other and talking to the children, or
I think they're all relevant. Yeah.
Are there any television shows that you could suggest that they might watch? Maybe you could come up with something where it's about moms or something. I don't know offhand. It's not the kind of thing that I think about a lot.
You probably don't watch those shows very much, but yes, I assure you there are. And I think that's a great idea to get some video, whether it's a little clip of a TV show, movies, even YouTube. You can search online and find little video clips. So this is what I was talking about, Virginia, where she would be watching people talk, whether it's scripted or it's real, but she could stop it and you could stop it together, and you could write down what she's hearing. You could play it 3 times in a row. So that's a nice way to be able to slow down that model text and give you time to talk about it together.
Anyway, people can say, oh, I learned so much English by listening to cartoons on television.
Yes. It's incredible how much people learn now from watching screens. I mean, there's some students that I ask, how did you learn English? They never went to school, and it's just from watching movies, watching YouTube, playing games online. It works. So for this particular goal, I think it's a great idea to try to find some videos of moms and kids interacting. Okay. One other idea is books. So there are books about moms, and there would be dialogue in there. It takes a little searching. It's something, if you're interested and you have the time, you could do that, or assign that to her to go to the library and try to talk to the librarian and try to identify some books with moms talking, and then you have a written text to look at together. So let's go to the next stage. Regardless of where we got these model texts, videos of YouTube, TV, movies, or observing real life, or in books, what would you encourage her to notice about those texts?
I'd like to ask just one question to what you said. We talked about when go to different restaurants with the student. Are we allowed, so to speak, take the student to the library and help her see children's books and have her pick out ones that she like? Or I'm not clear where we're allowed to go.
Yeah,
A long time ago, my student, we just met at her place, my place.
yeah,
I don't know that that's permitted now, so
yeah.
I don't
Thank
know.
you for asking. So our rule as an agency is that all tutoring must take place in a public place. So yes, you can go to the library, you can go to restaurants, you can do things together, you can take the bus together. If that works for both you and the student, it's not required, but it's a great way to learn together. You know, and for some tutoring pairs, they have a great time learning in real life, doing things together, shopping together. So absolutely, that's okay. What's not okay is any tutoring in a private residence, in a car. You can't take them in the car, anything like that. So what would we encourage her to notice about the text? Let's think about, I mean,
A
James,
menu?
no, we're
Oh,
looking,
moms,
we're
moms.
either
Okay,
watching
oh,
videos,
yes.
videos of moms interacting, or telling her, you know,
Oh,
at school at pickup, what do you want her to notice about how the moms are talking?
I guess what they're talking about and how they're relating to other people. I don't know how to quantify that, but are they talking about their children? Are they talking about school activities or
So
yes,
topics. I think
right.
what you're getting at is what are the topics that moms tend to talk about? And then along with topics, there's a whole lot of vocabulary related to all those different topics. Now, another thing you said is how they relate to each other,
Right.
which to me brings up even how do they start conversations? How do they change topics? How do they end conversations? How do they greet each other? How do they say goodbye to each other? Like all of those are valuable language nuggets that are happening all the time. But if you don't stop to notice them, you could miss them.
And I guess how you, I guess embedded in what you're saying is how they talk to more than one person at a time, or move from one to another person in the conversation. Who's dominating the conversation? Was that kind of, you know,
Turn
is anybody
taking. How does
taking it?
turn taking
Right,
happen?
right.
Yeah,
right.
and then it might be interesting to also relate that to every time we're teaching people from other countries. Like, how would this look in your country? What's similar? What's different? You know, are there different topics? Are there different kind of invisible rules about interaction and turn taking? And I mean, when you start to think about it, it's incredibly complex and interesting. And so engaging in these conversations, helping her notice all those things are really important. Also, how do they interact with their kids? Right? The language that's used talking to children, very different from talking to other adults, and very different cross-culturally.
And not just the language, but the tone, the intonation, the you know, are you little baby voice or something? I don't, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
you don't want to talk to a grown, you don't want to talk to your child in a baby voice and then turn to a grown up and talk to them in the same voice or tone. You might do that. I don't know. Maybe just from, it's hard to switch from one to the other sometimes. I don't.
Yeah. Well, now you're cooking, James. Exactly. These are the kinds of things, and we don't have to guess because we can watch, we can observe models. And so we look for the evidence in real life about how do people do this. But I love that you brought up the nonverbal aspects, or well, I guess it is still verbal, but inflection and tone of voice, that's all part of culture and all part of meaning. So those are all things that you could notice together. Let's move to the next question. So you really want to have her also produce something. After all this observation analysis, you want her to practice. How could you encourage that? What kind of activity could you design for her to practice all the stuff that she learned?
Take her to where these children and moms are and just sit in the background and let them interact.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll interact.
Definitely at some point you want it to transfer to real world interaction. But how could you prepare her a little bit more before she goes into that real situation with real people?
Well, I don't think this kind of situation is really such a disastrous situation.
No,
You know,
no.
it's just
No,
young people. young people's young moms and
No, I
whatever.
agree. They'll probably welcome her with open arms. I'm just saying, you could use your tutoring session to give her a little more confidence, to give her a little more practice, you know, doing some role play, for example. Another idea is you could have her write out, or together you could write out a dialogue, write out some interaction as a way to just think about the kinds of things that might be said, and again, like slow it down.
Well, based on what you said earlier, you could ask what sorts of things she would say in her own country to other moms. You know, if she would talk about the same sorts of things. I don't know. I
And then
don't
help
think,
her figure out how to say those things in English.
Yeah.
So help her see how she could be herself in English.
Yeah.
But also I would explore differences, you know, like, are there any taboo subjects?
Wow.
You know, in her culture, in our culture, are they the same? Are they different? Are there things that are awkward to talk about? Like, for example, Americans usually don't talk about money, how much money they make. But that might be different in her culture, for example.
it might. Right now, you probably don't want to talk about politics. You know.
You can say that too.
No, I wouldn't.
Let's stay away from that.
I mean,
We may think this is a golden land, whatever.
at least I mean, I always feel like people are free. People can do whatever they want, but I'm not going to tell them what to do. But I do think we as teachers, tutors have a role in helping them be more informed about the kind of reaction they might get.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so they might want to dive in there and see how it goes. What do you think about Trump? But we might want to warn them.
You mean we ask them what they think about Trump, or are they asking us? If they ask us what we think about Trump,
To me,
stuff,
it's
what are we
a
supposed
country.
to do? Back off gently.
Okay, we had a lot of fun talking about the kinds of instructional models. James, would you mind giving a little summary of some of the highlights of our conversation?
We talked about noticing, doing things like looking at videos, YouTube, television shows, that sort of thing, to find some examples of how moms relate to each other at a playground or at school or whatever. What else?
That's good. Thank you, James. Let's hear from someone from a different group. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on how you would encourage the student to produce the new language, or how would you design an activity for them to practice what they've learned. Did you come up with any?
We came up with the playground too. Just go to a playground with the person, and you see other moms and other kids. Sort of what James said too is get online. So we talked about Facebook, although that's kind of a crazy product, but it's a possibility. You can look, you know, you can get on there and say, I have a kid between 2 and 4. I need some help.
Mm-hmm.
And also just practice emailing. I'm sorry, texting. Practice texting with the
Okay,
person.
I definitely, at one point I made in our group is the ultimate goal is to have Amina go and actually participate in the real world, talking to other moms. But always think about how can we scaffold and create support in the tutoring session to have her practice in a safer, supported environment, either before or at the same time she's doing it in the real world. So we talked about, you know, doing some dialogue, some role play together, giving her a chance to practice with us, where she's not trying to build a relationship. She already has a relationship. And also even, you know, maybe write out some interaction, some create a little dialogue among moms as a way for her to actually think through something she might want to say, something she might expect to hear, using that new vocabulary related to mom talk. So those are just some more ideas. Okay, we are running short on time. Yeah.
I have a question. Do all of us know what role play is and how it works? And I understand a little bit, but what I would understand in this situation is that she can be the mother and I'll be the child, and then I'll be the mother and she can be the child. Is role play for, as I understand it, what?
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm
thanks
just
for
wondering.
asking. Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, if I'm using a term that's unfamiliar. What I would envision for role play here is just what you said. Like, you could take turns playing the role of a mom and a child. You could also take the roles of two moms and just interact as two moms and have her, have her be herself, and then you play the role of a young mom in her child's preschool or something like that. Lisa, you wanted to say something?
We also talked about brainstorming some conversation starters and practicing introducing yourself. How do you get to talk to someone you don't know in the first place, which can be pretty difficult for some of us.
Very important. Greetings, conversation starters, also closings. How do you politely leave a conversation? Yeah, all of those things are really important. Okay, let's go on to the end of the video. More good stuff here.